Captain's Jug of Thoughts podcast.
Hey, is that better?
Yeah, that's good.
All right.
Great.
See? And then there you go. We got a pop-up radio studio.
Yeah.
This is the Captain's Jug of Thoughts. We have a very special night ahead of ourselves here.
Yeah, we do.
Who do we got in the house, Captain?
We got the Rocket Man himself, Bill Suitor.
Rocket Man. You don't like Rocket Man?
Backpack. Well, it's up to you. What do you want to be called?
No, whatever you want to do.
Okay.
It's just...
Well, we'd like a little explanation from you exactly what that is, because for our viewers.
He kept saying we're having the Rocket Man on.
Yeah,
and
so a couple people said, "You got Elton John on the show?"
Yeah. I'm built like he is.
There we go.
Yeah, so why do people call you the Rocket Man?
Because I was the Rocket Man.
Right.
What a silly question.
Started in 1964 with Bell Aerospace.
Right.
Flying the Bell Rocket Belt.
Yep.
Under an Army contract.
Yeah.
And then...
so for the layman, that's essentially like a jetpack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But let's get the science out of the way right away.
Okay.
As we're talking. Usually when I do my dog and pony show, I have a balloon, and I blow the balloon up, and then I ask everybody, what is this?
Okay.
And they say it's a balloon. I said, no, it's a rocket. And I let it go.
Right.
So everybody thinks the rocket works and a jet, by pressing the exhaust against the atmosphere.
Uh-huh.
Why do they work in outer space then? In the vacuum. What it is like the balloon, the rocket has an explosion going on inside it. Same thing with the jet engine. There's kerosene being burned. Rapid expanding gases. So the balloon has the pressurized gas that you blew in there.
Yep.
And there's an equal amount of pressure pushing on every surface in the balloon.
Okay.
As soon as you open that up, there's an imbalance of pressure.
Yep.
So where the exhaust is where the low pressure is, and the high pressure is exactly opposite it on the other end of it.
Okay.
So that's what propels it. And as long as you keep putting things in there, it'll keep going. And that's why it works underwater in the vacuum of space or whatever. But a jet engine, even though it works on the same principle of imbalance, it's burning kerosene, usually kerosene, and it's the hot gases from the combustion. In a rocket, there really isn't any combustion. It's usually a chemical reaction.
Okay.
And so we'll go to the rocket belt that I flew.
Sure.
And it was powered by hydrogen peroxide, but not the 2% that you find in your medicine cabinet, or the 6 or 8% that women make their hair look like Donald Trump. Oh, wash my mouth out. I said that. So anyway, hydrogen peroxide is H2O2. It's water with an extra molecule of oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And it reacts violently with anything organic.
Okay.
So the more concentrated the peroxide is, the more violent the reaction. And it's called the specific impulse, or the ISP. It's the bang for the buck.
Right.
So at 90% strength, the peroxide, that's what we used in the rocket.
Right.
It has a reaction temperature of 1,388 degrees Fahrenheit and an expansion ratio of 5,000 to 1 in 0.2 of a millisecond. So where's all this going? When you take that H2O2 and run it through a catalyst, now anything organic, precious metals react violently with it.
Okay.
So that what the rocket belt had, the actual rocket motor was about the size of a good-sized orange.
Okay.
And right behind your head. And in there was a series of about 100 layers of silver screen with a small percentage of platinum. And the mesh is offset at certain angles to each other. So as the liquid peroxide is forced in there, it gets the most contact with the silver.
Okay.
And then this is where the reaction takes place. Now, in the rocket belt, the peroxide is going in there at 1.5 quarts per second. It's reacting 1388. So now that with this reaction, the extra molecule of oxygen is set free. So you have H2O and O2, water and oxygen. But what happens with water at 1388 degrees? You got live steam.
Yeah.
So the exhaust of the rocket belt is steam and oxygen.
Okay.
But the 1.5 quarts per second has become 5,000 times that in volume. And it's got to go somewhere. So that goes out the exhaust nozzles, and like the balloon, you're going to go in the opposite direction.
It for you,
So that's what's going on there.
Wow.
It's about 1,000
That's
horsepower.
So there's
That's awesome.
1,000 horsepower, and I heard the word combustion and violent chemical reaction.
Yeah.
No
And-
combustion.
No combustion.
No.
But violent chemical
Right.
reactions,
Okay,
things like
just
that.
it's the jet has the combustion and the rocket has the chemical reaction.
It's a lot of crazy stuff's going on, and you guys were like, hey, let's put this on a belt. Who was the first one to test the belt? Who drew the short straw?
The
Put on the violent chemical reaction belt.
the amazing thing is the inventor Wendell Moore lived right over here on Lake Road.
Oh, okay.
You know where the Oak Lodge campground was?
I'm not sure.
Weeks' Circle.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
right
yeah,
across
right.
from the campground, there's 2 stone pillars and iron gates.
Uh-huh.
That was Wendell Moore's house.
Oh, okay. He's the inventor?
He was the inventor. He was an aeronautical engineer for Bell.
Okay.
And he was working on the X-1 project, the
Yeah.
first supersonic plane for Bell.
Uh-huh.
And when Chuck Yeager got into trouble after he broke the sound barrier and they were going for Mach 2,
How do you get in trouble?
he not that kind of trouble.
What do you mean?
He was having technical problems.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
If you watch the movie The Right Stuff, the plane starts to tumble out of control.
Yeah.
And he had no way of regaining control. And finally, at like 8,000 feet, he finally regained control. He was lucky he wasn't killed.
Sure.
Wow.
So what they came up with is the air at 50,000 feet where he was so thin, the aerodynamic surfaces of the ailerons and the rudder and the elevator and all weren't having any effect on controlling the plane.
Okay.
Because he's in like a completely different atmosphere now.
Right, very thin. And so they came up with putting small peroxide rockets. There was one on the nose pointing up and down and one on each wingtip.
Okay.
And at a certain altitude, the control stick would automatically kick in the peroxide system.
Ah, all right.
So when
I
he
get you.
asked for a little this or that, it'd give a burst of steam.
Oh,
And you
wow.
could
That's cool.
balance
And that's
it
how they
out.
controlled it.
Wow.
So Wendell, they used to take the X-1 up under the belly of a B-50 bomber. And they're out in the California desert with these tests, and they're sitting under the wing of the bomber in the shade. And Wendell was working on the peroxide system for the X-1, X-2. And he said, I could take a couple of small peroxide rockets and attach them to a man's back, and he could fly.
Yeah.
So he ran it
Notice
past...
how he said a man's back, not
Yeah.
mine. We could try this with that guy. Hey, you, come here.
So they wanted to know if this was really going to work. So rather than mess around with a rocket, they had a system there at Bell with high-pressure nitrogen, limitless supply of high-pressure nitrogen.
Don't tell the carnies.
Yeah.
And so they rigged up this harness with a couple of nozzles and a throttle where he could open the throttle and the nitrogen would, actually let you fly
Yeah.
on this tether. You weren't going anywhere, but it proved the principle. Yeah, you
could fly it.
you can
and
do
you
this.
could control it.
So this is 1957,
Wow.
and the Army was looking for something for increased mobility for the foot soldier.
Oh my God, we almost had jetpack soldiers. Dude, that is badass.
Yeah.
You should.
Too bad this isn't video because I got a wealth of photographs and video and all the
if any
old
of that
stuff.
stuff's out there, we'll find some video. It's all out there. We'll link it.
It was liberated from the original archives. And so anyhow, they came up with the hydrogen peroxide system, and Wendell, it was his baby, so he was going to fly it. Now, Wendell wasn't the most athletic guy in the world.
Okay.
He was better. We used to joke he wore a bow tie all the time because he had his tie caught in the slide rule all the time. Slide rules. You have to explain that to your audience.
I know.
Go ahead, tell them.
It's like an old-timey fucking thing that you slide the stuff.
Okay.
I know what it looks like. I've seen it in movies and the moving pictures.
Okay.
Google it.
So anyway,
that's how they found out about it back then. They had to Google it, right?
Yeah, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So this guy.
So
Wendell's gonna try out his invention.
I wish you could see the films, but he's in the hangar on a tether, a safety tether,
Sure.
with a nylon rope
Okay.
to catch him. If he gets out of control, and he was out of control all the time. And on one of these disasters, he got tangled in the rope about 10 feet off the floor, and the hot rocket tube. Now here we got a rocket tube that's 1,300 degrees.
Yeah.
Melts the nylon rope, and he drops to the floor and breaks his knee.
Oh, jeez.
And so they said, "Oh my God, there goes our pilot." So they looked around the plant for hopefully a propulsion engineer that could, give him some feedback too.
Sure.
With a low IQ. And get him to strap this thing on. No. It was Harold Graham.
It wasn't me.
And for all the Western New Yorkers, Harold Graham was a graduate of Nichols.
Okay.
Played hockey for Nichols. So he was pretty, physically adept.
Sure.
And so Harold mastered the machine.
Yeah.
And flew it free. And decided this was a good way to get killed.
Yeah.
And he said, I want out.
Oh, okay.
So in the meantime, now they've come up with a contract with the U.S. Army
Yep.
that said they have to take a young man, average draft age, explain to him what the draft is, conscription into the military.
Yeah.
It's where, like when there's a party and you really don't want to go, but all your friends kind of make you go. It's sort of like
there
that.
you go.
Yeah.
So you had to be, 18 years,
Right.
19 years old.
Okay.
With no aviation experience. So the idea being they'd take any young soldier, and teach him to fly these things.
Sure.
And so there was a young man, Peter Kadzierski was his name.
Okay.
He was friends with Ernie Krutinger, who's the man that physically built the machines.
Oh, okay.
And he was going to Burgard High School, taking aviation courses.
Okay.
And so they said, "Hey, you're a perfect prospect for this thing."
Yeah.
So Peter really did a really great job, in the early days of it. And then they said, "Well, this guy's just a kid. We got to get somebody a little older." So Wendell had a friend, Bob Corder, who was like 38, 39 years old. He was a ex-Air Force pilot.
Okay.
So Bob was next, and then one of the technicians, Gordon Yeager, no relation to Chuck Yeager, he was the next one. And now in the meantime, they started doing, the first public flights were at the Pentagon on the lawn.
Wow.
And flying over helicopters and different obstacles.
So they were really testing this out to try to give this to the soldiers. They wanted to add this to combat.
Yeah. No, the thing was, the whole idea was the peroxide rocket, that's 6 gallons of fuel that I talked about.
Peroxide Rocket's also a pretty cool band name. Just put that out there. Peroxide Rocket, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what they wanted to use.
It was, at the time, it was the safest, if you can imagine, that's the safest fuel
Okay.
to use on a manned machine.
Right.
And with the least problems, hydrazine, which is UDMH, and a whole bunch of the others, are horribly carcinogenic, and they react. You look at it wrong and it reacts and all.
Okay.
It's just too dangerous to use. So the peroxide
was a little more reliable.
Right. And there was very little money in the budget. So when they built this first prototype, they looked around for anything they could scrounge and not charge it to a work order number. And there were these stainless steel oxygen tanks from B-29 bombers all over the place. This is right after the World War II.
Okay.
So 2 of those tanks would hold 6 gallons. 6 gallons would give you 21 seconds of fuel.
Oh, jeez.
So the rocket belt could fly for 21 and a half seconds.
Okay.
That was it.
You had
And
21 seconds to find somewhere soft to land.
now, it sounds like it's, the wink of the eye, but it's watch your sweep hand on your non-digital
I'm sure
watch.
if you were floating pretty high, 21 seconds is long.
You
Feels
can
long.
get in a lot of trouble in 21 seconds.
I bet you can.
and really wish you hadn't. Oh, no. I had one flight in particular, the World's Fair in Knoxville. There was a photographer from Life magazine, and the U.S. pavilion was 140 feet high, and he said, if I get on the roof there, could you fly up so I can get a picture of you and the whole World's Fair in the background? And I said, sure, but that'll be that flight for the noontime.
Yeah.
He said, okay, well, I'll get the clearance and all. And so, this is 1982 now. I had a lot of experience by this time and should have known better.
Okay.
But he's up there, and he says, I'll give you a signal when. So I took off, and I'm going straight up.
Yep.
Now, we'll cut the story there for a minute while I explain to you the rocket belt's throttle. The human wrist has about 90 degrees of rotation to it.
Okay.
The throttle in the beginning on the very early one with Wendell was what's called a dead man's throttle. You squeeze it,
Yeah.
and it's spring-loaded. You let go, it shuts off.
So it's
Okay.
it's like this kind of backpack thing, but you have like 2 joysticks on the side,
Right.
Almost like the weed or the leaf blower, like industrial. So you know what I mean? Like
In California, those leaf blowers you wear in your it's called the Mexican Jetpack. Sorry, Jose.
Sorry, Jose.
So anyway, they decided that the squeeze throttle is not a good idea, because what's the first thing you do when you get in trouble? You tense up and
Yeah,
squeeze.
yeah.
Right.
And there's films of him. He's in this big muddy area going psh, 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 on his ass. And every time he hits, he squeezes it and hits it.
Yeah.
So they went to the twist throttle, but then they found that your wrist is so limited in rotation that the rocket belt fueled, full of fuel, and the machine self-empty weighs about 62 pounds.
Okay.
And then you're adding another 60-some pounds of fuel to it.
Sure.
Peroxide's heavier than water. And so they said, well, you're going to have at least 250, 260 pounds of thrust before you even start to get off the ground,
Yeah.
lifting the man and the machine.
Sure.
So let's make...
I would never be. This is. You guys really stuck with this. I would hit one problem and be like, I guess we're just not making jetpacks then, because I'm too lazy. Like, you guys really, every problem you pushed through it and like just reinvented them. Not reinvented, but added to it and made it better.
I was just the dummy that did it.
Yeah.
Here, boy, go do that.
Yeah.
Fly to that roof.
You're the test dummy.
All right,
So-
I'll fly up to that roof.
Well, we
So,
wouldn't have known if it could make it or not without guys like you.
Right.
So anyway, they came up with what's called a 60% throttle. When you open that throttle, you have 60% of the full thrust instantly. So what you're actually throttling is that top 40%.
Right.
If you didn't do that and you went from 0 to 100 in that 90 degrees,
Yeah.
at the end of a flight, you're losing 2.5 pounds per second of fuel. At the end of the flight, that little bit of area in that throttle you have to play with would be so sensitive you couldn't fly it. You couldn't control it.
Okay.
It would just be too sensitive. So by cutting it so that the minimum thrust is 240 pounds of thrust, or 260, it gives you a wide range of control at the end where you need it.
Sure.
And so now with that in mind, 60% thrust is about 240, 250 pounds of thrust.
Okay.
Keep that in mind. And there's no off on the thing to let you know you're near off. It's just you got to get used to, well, it's somewhere over here. You know, it's good.
Right, you're kind of counting in your head while you're up there.
We'll get to that too, the buzzer.
Yeah.
So it's like muscle memory.
So anyway,
there's like a warning thing that starts. Hey.
I take off, and I'm going straight up beside this building.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I'm going by the roof, and he's like this with his camera, and I'm just, and I look at there's a timer on the control arm.
Yeah.
And I got like 7 seconds left.
Oh, jeez.
And I call this my oh shit flight. And I verbally looked at the timer and I said, oh shit. Because I kept backing the throttle off, but it was still putting out more than 250 pounds of thrust.
Oh, okay.
Even as I'm backing it off. It wasn't slowing down. So I cocked it over to a real hard, like be a lateral turn, and actually driving it downward.
Wow.
And then pulled it out at the last minute. And just as I touched on the grass, it was out of fuel. And it was,
Wow.
How'd the picture come out?
He said he pulled it out the last minute 7 times.
Yeah.
I've shut it off deliberately and shut it off by accident.
Uh-huh.
And because it's a chemical reaction, there's no ignition. You can start and stop it all you want.
Oh, all right.
And but to slow it down, if you're in a vertical climb, you want the ability to shut it off.
Yeah.
Because you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
all of a sudden you're way the fuck up there,
If you
and there's nothing left.
If you were not to have that, you could really be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. I could imagine.
This whole thing sounds like trouble.
The more you get comfortable with it,
Yeah.
then the more it becomes like a second part. You don't even think about what you're doing.
Yeah, it's a muscle memory thing at that point.
I think anybody gets that. Like, he's a bartender, I'm a musician. We both probably had, like, when you're in the zone and you're just flushing, like, you're not even thinking about it anymore.
No, you're not.
You're just moving, and you feel so comfortable in this suit that you can operate
both of what we
as
do,
if,
what we both do is a little bit safer, I think. If
I
we
don't
do
know, man.
screw up, it's not catastrophic.
You don't
It's like
get
they just
people-
got the wrong drink.
You don't give people their booze, and you play a shitty show, they'll start throwing stuff at you.
They will start throwing stuff at you.
They might throw you off a roof.
I saw the Blues Brothers. That can happen.
Yeah,
right.
The chicken wire. So how'd did the guy get his picture from the roof?
I don't know. I never saw him after that.
Oh, wow.
That's the truth.
That's funny.
And it was,
So what year was? Did we got a time? Someone Google Time magazine.
That was 82.
82.
1982.
Oh
Yeah.
shit! Guy almost dies in Rocket Pack.
Yeah.
no, nobody knew.
Yeah,
Right.
that's pretty great. So you had a
Now I gotta. You had mentioned the time.
right.
How do you keep track of the time?
Yeah.
They tried all kinds of things. They had a little red light that would flash in front of you that was hanging off the helmet, and
Okay.
all
Right.
kinds of things. But when you're learning that thing was next to impossible to learn how to fly.
Yeah.
It really, the mental load, in this time monkey you got on your back
Yeah.
Sure.
is
I couldn't even imagine.
150% of your concentration is on just controlling it, let alone worrying about the time.
Yeah, exactly.
And how
But
much
the
you're
time-
turning your wrist a couple extra degrees.
I
Once you're
changes.
flying free off the tether, it's really important to keep track of the time.
Oh my
Yeah.
god! Yeah.
So what they came up with was a buzzer, like a vibrator, in the back of the helmet
Okay.
that pressed on the base of your skull. And when you opened the throttle, there was a spring-loaded pin that rode on a ramp.
Okay.
And as soon as you opened the throttle, it went down the ramp and started it looked just like a timer on a stove.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And you
Like an egg timer.
Yep.
in the
As
helmet.
as the technicians were strapping you in and pressurizing, they would set that timer at 20 seconds.
Yep.
It gave you a second and a half.
That was
extra.
that was nice of him.
So as soon as you open the throttle, the timer starts running.
Yeah.
At
I'm getting mad anxious right now.
at the halfway point, at 10 seconds, you start getting a buzz. You don't hear it, you feel it.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
Because this thing's got to be loud, right?
No, it's a
No, not the buzzer, like the machine itself, like the jetpack
100,
itself.
130 decibels.
Yeah, it's got to
Wow.
be loud. So
Yeah.
you need to be able to
And
feel the
it's a
alarm.
very sharp shriek.
Yeah.
The opening in the rocket thing, you can barely get your little finger in. There's
Oh, really?
1,000 cubic feet of steam per second coming out of out of those two nozzles.
So it's making it's like a whistling.
I don't know. Have you ever heard a high pressure air hose?
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I have. Mm-hmm.
So you get it every second for 5 seconds. That means now you got 6 seconds left.
Right.
It goes into a solid buzz.
So now you're counting that while counting everything else.
Well, what it is when you get that first buzz, you got to start looking for your landing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, okay, I'm halfway.
Yeah.
Let's start looking for a landing. Second buzz is like, where's the landing?
Yeah. So and usually what you do is when you're going to do a flight, you walk it off and pace it off. Look for wires. You don't see wires. You do. I had close calls with wires.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah.
Right here at the Coast Guard station, we were in '66. We were making a tactical film for the Army,
Okay.
and Old Fort Niagara let us use the fort for a lot of the filming.
Right.
And they used to have a radio tower and a lookout tower right on the corner
Okay.
behind the castle.
Yeah.
And so what I was to do, it was called Ship to Shore. And I was on the deck of the double-ended Coast Guard boat.
Yeah.
We didn't have walkie-talkies or anything.
Right.
John Patterson was the film guy from Florida. He said, when I wave my hat, you take off. So I was on the boat, and the current was carrying us out into the lake, and I was supposed to just fly as fast as I could fly into the Coast Guard station, around front, land, walk up the stairs, and go in the building. That's what the cut was going to be.
Right.
Okay.
And so we're drifting out further and further into the lake, and I'm looking and I'm saying, wow, come on, John. I can see him by the seawall. And I wait. Well, finally, all of a sudden, he waves his hat. And as soon as I got off the boat and got a little altitude, I could see I was a whole lot farther than I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And for an instant there, I thought, do I land back on the boat or go for shore?
Yeah.
So I just laid the whip
And
to
you
it.
got 20 seconds to decide, right?
And I don't remember ever going faster than I did that day because
Wow.
I could feel my pant legs and everything,
Yeah.
my cheeks.
Oh, wow.
But
And they're like, we were out of film. Can
in
you do
no
another one?
No time. I was over the shore, and I went around the house and landed and went in. And when I came out of the building, Ed Geiser, the technician, he's coming. He's calling me every name in the book. What is wrong with you? Are you nuts? Da 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 da.
Yeah.
And I do recall like a shadow or something as I went by the building. I missed a guy wire from the radio tower
Oh,
by
Jesus.
inches.
Wow.
Wow.
Been like a cheese slicer.
Yeah, oh, Jesus
So-
Christ.
And I've had some close calls with wires.
Yeah.
You just don't see them.
Yeah.
When you got glasses like this, you don't see much of anything.
And you had those
My
back
eyes,
then?
since second grade.
Since second grade? Oh, wow. Well, then there you go.
That's
And
why
that was
they
as
sent you.
far as I went in school.
That's where they sent you. They're like, he's not going to be able to see
So
how high this
the
thing
low
goes.
IQ came in good on
That's
the rocket.
what
belt.
yeah, right.
Here, kid, go do this.
Yeah. Okay.
But you got pretty comfortable with it.
Yes.
And you learned, that's got to be such a great feeling. Like everybody's, wants to fly.
I had over 1,000 flights. I better get comfortable.
Oh, wow. 1,000 flights. That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
Even still on the 1,000th one where you're like, ooh. No, you were good by then. That's cool.
And, we had a whole bunch of machines. We'll get to the jet engine in a second. But we had the rocket belt.
Yeah.
But then Wendell's mind was always coming up with something. And the Army said, well, you got to strap in and all the malarkey with straps, and you got to have a stand to put it on and this and that. So he said, okay.
But
so
you're like, hey, we made a man fly. They're like, yeah, but it's heavy and there's a whole thing with the straps. Come on.
He
It's
comes
amazing.
up with they called it the Pogo Stick.
Okay.
And it looked like a coat rack in the corner with scuba gear on it.
Yeah.
And you just step on, no straps or anything. Step on and away you go. And that was one.
It was a flying pogo stick.
Yep. And then he took a fiberglass office chair, mounted the same system on it, and it was a flying chair. So
I think you guys were just like watching the Jetsons, and you're like, let's try that.
This is where the Jetsons got their ideas.
Oh, from you guys. Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Sherwood Schwartz, we're coming after you.
So the chair, I get pictures of all this. Picture a guy flying in a chair
Yeah.
with a glass bubble over him.
Oh, wow.
Now, if it's jet powered, it can go for a couple hours. The seat is the fuel tank. The engine is underneath your seat, and away you know. It's just
And it was in like a glass dome, like George Jetson's.
Yeah. Yep. And then there was the two-man pogo, where they took two rocket belt systems, and you could take a passenger, and the idea of that was to rescue downed pilots.
Sure.
And then I worked for 9 months or more on the Apollo lunar pogo. We had a fly-off between the lunar car and our pogo. And we had to go to Houston to learn to work in the two different spacesuits. There was the hard suit and the soft suit. International Latex made the soft suit, which is what won the fly-off for the suit.
Okay.
And Hamilton Standard made the other, but it looked like a knight in armor.
Oh, really? Wow.
You know, it was...
And you were testing this for flying in them?
Yeah, and so...
I feel like that, of course the other one would have won.
So this is where the Iron Man idea came from, then, too.
Yeah.
The nice thing about this was we were at Langley Research Center,
Uh-huh.
and they had this 1/6 gravity. It was a 365-foot tall sawhorse, is what I called it.
Wow.
Right.
The lunar landing vehicle, the astronauts would train at 1/6 gravity. They'd pull it up on this great big thing that was hundreds of feet long, and then they had rocks and boulders and everything, and they'd come in, and so they set us up with a vacuum bag, taking 5-6 of our weight. So instead of 20 seconds of flight time, we had 90 seconds.
Okay.
Wow.
But we had to prove that whichever suit was selected, you'd be able to control the pogo.
Yeah.
And so the lunar car won. The astronauts all wanted the pogo.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, but the lunar car was made in Texas, and Lyndon Johnson saw that the lunar car won.
Ah.
I think it's a little more of like LBJ strikes me as a guy who's like a bunch of pogo sticks, like a kid, like little kids, like a bunch of 8-year-olds. Like, no, we need a car. We need an American-made car up there.
It's getting near my bedtime. Let's hurry up here.
All right. Well, okay. So you
we
were
gotta go
flying
to-
these.
we gotta-
You're flying these events, like you said. You did the World's Fair.
James Bond,
James,
Thunderball.
You flew it in James Bond.
Yes.
Yeah?
Now, let me I always want to do this. I would have never had the chance to fly in James Bond if Gordon Yeager hadn't said he would share the flights with me. When we would go overseas or go to do an important job,
Yeah.
it was 2 pilots and a technician.
Okay.
The lead pilot would do the press flight and all the
Sure.
pretty boy shit. And I
that
would
you?
pump peroxide.
Oh.
If he got sick or hurt, I would do the flying.
Okay.
So understudy, sort of.
Yep. Thunderball was only the second Bond movie. I didn't know what Thunderball
Who was
was.
in that one? Was
I had
that
no idea.
Connery, or was that?
I just know we were going to France to do this James Bond thing.
Yeah.
So we get there, and it's out in the country at this chateau. And Gordy takes out a 5-franc coin, which is bigger than a silver dollar. And he flings it up in the air, and he says, call it. And he won. He says, okay, I'll go first. He said, we'll alternate every other thing. This James Bond thing is going to be big.
Yeah.
That's what he said to me.
Wow.
It wasn't wrong.
And had he not been, as gracious as he was,
Sure.
I'd have just been pumping peroxide.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's
so
amazing.
I'm assuming there's a scene in the movie where James Bond's flying around one of these things, but that was actually you?
Part of it.
Yeah.
We made 6 flights, and they
Okay.
used little clips. Gordy did 3, and I did 3. But I can tell by the legs and the
Who's
you know,
yeah.
Yeah.
and the it's the two of us
Yeah.
had our moment.
Right. So when you're watching it, you're like, that's me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. That's awesome.
Now we get to the jet. I gotta get to the
jet?
jet.
Okay.
The Army, okay, you prove the concept. A man can fly, you can do 2 flights, or 2 people, or a chair, or whatever.
Yeah.
Now we need something practical. At the time, in the 60s, there were no small, lightweight jet engines powerful enough to do this.
Sure.
The other thing about a jet engine, it's spinning mass. There's compressors in there, fans. Okay, so a helicopter has a tail rotor. Why?
I don't know.
Ta-da! The big rotor,
Yeah.
okay, is spinning in one direction.
Sure.
When that helicopter lifts off the ground, the inertial forces, gyroscopics, will start the whole helicopter spinning.
Okay.
So the tail rotor
Keeps
fights,
it in place.
keeps it,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
flying straight. So
I knew
if,
that. I just knew he didn't. So yeah.
Right.
I wanted-
So if you take
Right.
a jet engine, which is all this spinning mass, and it's spinning at tens of thousands of RPM,
Yep.
okay? So if you have only one set of compressors spinning in one direction, and you lift off the ground, you're going to start spinning right with it.
Sure.
yeah.
And pretty soon you lose your lunch and everything.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
And
Probably not long.
So
Just you in a tuxedo like James Bond, just throwing up and spinning in a circle.
I don't even own a tuxedo.
Just what James Bond wore.
Oh. So anyhow, they went to Williams International. It was called Williams Research at the time. Sam Williams, the founder, was the world's leading expert on small jet engines. And they went to him with the problem. How do we do this? He says, okay. So he comes up with what's called a quill shaft engine. The shaft that the compressors, the fans rotate about, is hollow.
Okay.
And there's one set of compressor blades spinning in one direction on the outer part, and the others in the center of it is the inner one spinning in the opposite direction. The outer one is half the mass, half the weight of the inner one,
Okay.
and it spins at half the RPM, so that they counteract each other's gyroscopics.
It seems to be when you're explaining all these, there seems to be a theme of always there needs to be one thing, and it's 2 forces acting against each other that makes this stuff happen. Like you
Right.
said with the balloon,
So what happens is the fuel gets atomized into there and ignited. Now the inner spool is spinning at 60,000 RPM. That's 1,000 revolutions a second, if you can imagine such a thing.
That sounds like a Prince album.
And the outer spool is spinning at 30,000.
Okay.
And they counteract each other's. The thing about a jet is that all you have to carry is the fuel, not the oxidizer. Whereas with the rocket, you have to have fuel and oxidizer.
Okay.
And so the air is all your supply of oxygen.
Sure.
And so all you have to carry is the kerosene.
Yeah.
And if it's a turbojet, which is a single stage, it isn't the 2 spools, okay, it gets extremely hot, like 1,500 degrees.
Wow.
And the exhaust is extremely hot. And the noise is unbearable. I mean, it's like 150, 160 decibels for a turbojet.
You mentioned earlier that you were hard of hearing. You think this had
Huh?
anything to do with it? A lot of loud rock concerts, wasn't it?
Yeah, it had a lot to do with it. So where the hell was I?
You're talking about the jet and the
the heat.
Yeah.
the heat, yes.
Okay, so now what Sam came up with is the center compressor that's getting the fuel and the oxygen.
Yeah.
That's where the ignition's taking place, and it's up around 1,500 degrees. But the outer fans are sucking cold air in over the inner chamber, and it's and that at the top here behind your head, it's mixing. The cold air is mixing with the super hot
Right
air.
behind your head.
And
Is this crazy chemical reaction happening inches behind your head?
and it's exhausting out to 2 nozzles.
Yeah.
Now the noise you hear, whether it's a car exhaust or a gun or a jet or anything, what you're hearing is the rapid expanding gases. So like on a car, you take those hot expanding gases and you run them into the catalytic converter and the muffler and the resonator. And like a Lexus, you won't even hear it,
Yeah.
okay? Because you've cooled the gases enough before they leave. And so what happens with that is instead of a 160 decibel jet, now you have one that sounds like a leaf blower.
Oh, wow.
All right.
And it, or a
I
big
got some
shop
neighbors with leaf blowers that sound like 160 decibel jets.
Jose?
Jose, yeah.
can you see?
Jose's pretty cool.
But now the other thing is, yes, if it was a single stage, you could be ramming that air through there.
Yeah.
But by mixing it with the colder air, it's the super hot air is expanding the cold air so that the net effect is a greater amount of thrust than if you were to go with just the hot gases.
Right.
And the cold air mixing in there hasn't taken the temperature down and the expansion ratio down to affect it. It's a whole lot more efficient.
Okay.
And a lot quieter. So a jet belt. Now Bell in 1969 had the jet belt flying with the Williams engine. It flew like 5 or 6 times.
Right.
And the jet belt would fly for 20 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Whereas the rocket belt, and this was the very first one.
20 minutes?
Now, the jet belt had to go to Fort Eustis, which was where the transportation command is, for its acceptance flight
Okay.
to complete the contract.
Right.
Now, this is during Lyndon Johnson's Great Society. The jet belt goes to Fort Eustis, does its flight for the generals. Wow, we're impressed. Thank you very much, gentlemen. That will be all. That was the end of it.
That was it.
Yeah.
No new contracts, no nothing.
Wow.
So now Sam Williams has these engines. What the hell am I going to do with them? All our cruise missiles have a Williams jet belt engine in them
Wow.
this day.
Oh, no kidding.
Yep.
Wow.
So when you hear of a cruise missile,
Yeah.
that's
It's
the
the
jet
engine.
belt motor.
Wow, no shit.
And now, what that used to put out like 450 pounds of thrust,
Yeah.
and it weighed like 75 pounds.
Yeah.
Now it weighs 40-some pounds and puts out over 700 pounds of thrust.
Oh, there you go.
There's just
Unbelievable.
constant innovation.
Yep.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Yep.
It's never, it's always how can you make this thing better, lighter, more efficient,
Yep.
Why do you think that never, we don't see footage, unless we're watching the Avengers, we don't see footage of soldiers flying around on pogo sticks or anything like that. Why do you think the jetpacks
really
and
not practical?
yeah, it just didn't play out to have,
Nah.
be
And
badass though.
you see
be
these-
badass.
Yeah.
It'd be cool.
You see these guys on these flyboards, and I got a good friend, David Mayman's got his jetpack.
Yeah.
Jetpack Aviation. Google that.
Yeah.
David Mayman.
Okay.
But he's using turbojets. He doesn't have a twin spool. And so he's got one turbojet on one side that spins in one rotation, clockwise.
Yeah.
The one on the other side is spinning anti-clockwise, canceling out each other's gyroscopics, but they're still turbojets. The noise is incredible. It's got
Yeah.
a flame that far coming out of it and all.
Right.
Until somebody comes up with another quill shaft engine, and Williams.
I'll work. I'll do some sketches.
Okay.
I'll figure it out.
Williams and the government will not let go of the
Yeah.
engine.
Well,
they
at
have.
least
Yeah.
the engine, they got some use out of it.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah.
So let's talk Super Bowl.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So you had another kind of you had another career. It sounds like
Yeah, and what is even
flying
called the
these
Super Bowl?
around
I
for
know.
for
It was
show business.
What we call Super Bowl I.
Yeah. I
But,
know.
I got I wasn't a football. I know they run up and down the field, but that's about the.
You were busy doing more important stuff.
And it was
Right.
Green Bay and Kansas City.
Yeah.
And we got to meet. We're going down the line, shaking hands with everybody. And here's this grumpy old man. It was Vince Lombardi. Now,
Vince
I
Lombardi.
didn't know who he is.
You shook hands with Vince Lombardi?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's amazing. That's what the trophy is.
And
That's what the trophy is named after.
His body English was like, "Come on, let's get this shit over with," you know.
Yeah.
You know?
He's like, we're playing
Same-
fucking football. What is this flying around shit? He's like, we don't even pass the ball.
You guys don't. We didn't even do helmets yet.
Yeah.
Why is the guy flying wearing a helmet?
So you meet Vince Lombardi. Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it was years later before I,
Realized
somebody.
who you
So
really
you guys,
told me.
this was the very first Super Bowl. What year is
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
66.
So you, for all you know, they're,
Or was it
they're playing
67?
some game.
I thought it was 67, but
Yeah, January 67.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yep.
And they had you come out and do sort of a flyover.
There were
sort
two
of
of
like
us,
the
Quarter
Blue
and I.
Angels. Yeah.
If you see where the cameras are up in the top of the stadium,
Yeah.
the marching bands had they formed up like two football players.
Uh-huh.
And then on the sidelines, there was these two giant brown footballs. We were each inside them. I had NFL on my chest. He had AFL on his
Oh
chest.
yeah, wow. Cool.
I still got that
That's
Wow.
awesome. Yeah.
somewhere at home in a
Who
drawer.
are you leaving that to? That's gonna be worth some money, man.
That's got to be worth a lot of money.
What am I bid?
Right.
bidding starts.
Anyhow, as the bands were playing, the feet, 1 foot on each of the formed up players,
Yeah.
came down to where the footballs were.
Yeah.
It's like they kicked them.
Oh,
Then we
okay.
took off.
Then you took off.
Oh wow.
Went out and flew, and we met on the 50-yard lane and shook hands.
Wow, that is awesome.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
That's way better than the Black Eyed Peas.
Yeah, it sure is.
Yeah.
It's better than any of these bands that they're putting out for the NFL shows now. I'd much rather see that.
That's pretty great. So what is that I mean, I wish that there were like GoPros back then. Like, what was your perspective looking around? I mean, you're still counting the seconds, right?
When we did that Army film,
Yeah.
Yeah.
we had
The one by the Coast Guard? you're
yeah.
talking-
Well, we did it all over the place, but 16 millimeter movie camera. We had a thing we called the Gothic Arch. There was a real lightweight aluminum tube, so the
Okay.
camera was up over your head.
So you did have like a camera mounted on you.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And it got your hands and the top of your helmet in the picture.
Put that in some
So you
VR.
could-
Put that in the Oculus.
Let's see, what could you Google? Just just go Yahoo or something.
Yeah.
But I'm saying like the Super Bowl one is interesting to me. It's because you're looking down on this huge event from like a perspective that nobody else. Everybody's watching this on TV or they're in the stands watching it. Like you're the only one who's getting that perspective of it.
Yeah.
So you're seeing this huge event, but it's got to be a little smaller because you're up in the sky.
Two things I got to tell you with what you see. When we were making the Army film, it was in June, and it was late in the afternoon, so the sun was low,
Right.
way over in the west.
Yep.
And they wanted one more flight, and it just wanted me to fly off the wall down by where the castle is,
Yep.
and then over all those old buildings, and then land somewhere in the fort.
Yeah.
And
The old buildings that aren't there anymore.
pardon?
The old buildings in the fort that aren't. That
Oh,
are,
I don't know.
what buildings did you want to fly over?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I forgot about that. So as I'm flying, all of a sudden I see my shadow as I'm going over the rooftops.
Oh,
and I
wow.
was distracted. I mean, you shouldn't be distracted.
Well, I wouldn't think so.
But it was the first time I'd ever seen, and it gives you a feeling of just what it is you're doing.
Sure.
You know?
Like that was like special effects in like a Superman movie, but you're living it.
Yeah,
know what I mean?
and then
Like-
and it wasn't until this spring when people asked me, "What's it like to fly? What's it feel like?" and all.
It took till this spring for people to ask you that. That would have been my first question in 1960 when you first came back
Yeah,
the
I
first
know.
time.
I've never been able to come up with a good answer that you can go do and see it for yourself.
Okay.
I ride my bike every morning in the nice weather,
Yeah.
6-8 miles, and there's a dip in the road where I go.
Okay.
And so I'm going along. I got a nice tailwind, and I want to air the boys out and just glide down the thing.
Yeah.
And it's hot weather,
Yeah.
and so I'm standing up on the bike, and I got my hands off, and it's the wind is coming by and all, and it's just exactly what it's like.
Oh wow.
I was moving without any of my
Yeah.
power.
Yeah.
And so that's what it's like. So if you want to know what it's like, get on a bicycle, go down Lewiston Hill.
And just let yourself
You'll
coast.
get more than 21 seconds.
Yeah, right?
Just let yourself coast, and you'll get that feeling of
Yeah.
floating.
Yeah, you got to stand up and then lean
Yeah.
into the handlebars so that you don't see the bike.
Okay.
Put your hands out in front of you,
Yeah.
and that's it. Jason just handed me this.
Yeah, we had a note.
When we were making the Army film, we did it all over Niagara County.
Yep.
Well, it's not there anymore, but there was a dip in Youngstown Wilson Road where a creek passed under it.
Okay.
And boing.
We're
and
gonna put
the-
little
the-
jetpacks on the microphones and just have them floating in front of us.
That's what we need.
From now on. Yeah.
The distance from the surface of the water, the creek flowing under the bridge, to the top, to the underside of the bridge, was about 11 feet.
Okay.
With the Gothic Arch camera, you were 7 foot 1 inch or something like that.
Okay.
And then you had this 15-pound battery pack, this extra weight, the camera and then the battery pack. So the
Yeah, I was
throttle
gonna
response.
say that it's all adding weight to you, which now
Yes.
has to mess with the fuel and stuff like that.
and the throttle response is real slow.
Yeah.
When you don't have all this stuff on, you hit that 1,000 horsepower, it's there.
Yeah.
Well, you had to take this into consideration. So the idea was I was to fly along the creek at low enough that I'm making big circles of mist and,
Okay.
That's a good shot.
it was a
Yeah.
cool
Picture it.
shot, really.
Yeah.
That is cool.
Go under the bridge, come out the other side, and then the creek turned and fly out of frame. So as I'm approaching, whenever you're going something low, you do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You pull your head in like a turtle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I'm-
they say that about helicopters is in every movie, guys run up to helicopters and they're ducking and they're like, the blades are like 15 feet in the air. Like, you're not going to hit them. But everybody in every movie ducks while running up to a helicopter.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sort of like
absolutely.
that.
So all of a sudden, my toes hit the water just before I got to the bridge, and it threw me headfirst into the water.
Oh, Jesus.
Now it's a rocket, and I was aware that I'd gone into the water, but I never felt out of control, and this only lasted like 3 seconds,
Yeah.
if that.
Right.
So you kind of skipped
just-
on the water like a stone?
I went into the water like I dove in.
Oh, wow.
like a torpedo.
I can remember feeling and hearing stones, boom, 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 boom. But then all of a sudden, this bright light, and I pulled up on the handles with a full throttle, and I came out the other side, and I continued the flight. They had 6 cameras on the shot. As soon as my feet hit and I went in, everybody started running in front of the cameras. And the only footage they got was the camera I had and one that was mounted on the bridge. But they got some of it. But
I don't know about you. As soon as I saw a bright light, I'd be like, well, that was dumb. That was it.
Yeah.
I
can't
know
believe
that.
but
was
it
it.
was
Oh, there really is a light. They weren't lying.
you don't even think about things.
Yeah.
You just
the
react.
adrenaline, or your brain is trained to just kind of react in
Just
the
to
moment.
stay
like you
alive.
said. Yeah,
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
In hindsight, you think of all that later.
Yeah.
So when was your last flight? When's the last time you strapped on a belt?
That would be Nino's. Probably 2016, 15, 16.
Okay, so that's pretty recently, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So you still do it, yeah? I didn't know if you
Well, it's
had
like
one
riding,
of too many of those creeks things and hung up the old backpack.
Yeah, it's like riding a bicycle, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Once you learn,
Right.
and these guys that would hire me to come, fly the rocket belts. See, they got this thing, and it costs nowadays about $1,200 for a load of fuel, 20 seconds worth of fuel. And so it's better for them to hire me to see if the thing even works. They don't know how to fly it yet.
Because you know what you're doing, and you'll be able to do it
Yeah.
properly. They might let all the fuel out right
And they're-
away.
and so it's easier to.
Did you and your friends ever dude, you look at them like, we got jetpacks, like we could get some shit done here. We could fly and drop in and steal the Mona Lisa and take off like a Bond villain.
No Bond villain.
That is some Bond villain technology right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, too
Or
much.
you do Batman and you do the good guy vigilante style.
You know what I did see here when Sean Connery died last week.
Right.
I don't know where they were showing it, but it was a number of years prior to that. Sean Connery was a guest on David Letterman's show.
Sure.
And so his entrance, you didn't know what was going on. David Letterman sitting at his desk, and here is Sean Connery, and the curtain opens up, and he's in a jetpack, CO2 extinguishers or something.
Sure.
And he lands, and these two beautiful women come out and take it off him, and
Yeah.
it was pretty neat to see.
Yeah. That's
And
cool.
that was like one of your guys' design back.
No, that was
pack?
somebody
else. That was Letterman's personal jetpack.
Somebody had a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it came from that. It came from what you guys brought in.
Right. Original.
Yeah.
And that is interesting to see how like some of the technology, there's a lot of experimentation, but they ended up using the motor on the cruise missiles. You know what I mean? How, like one thing, all right, well, this didn't work out the way we wanted to, but we can still use this over here.
Yeah.
A lot of innovation happening, especially in those days. And you remember everybody's name first and last. I'm terrible with that.
Yeah.
I mean, Craig will tell you.
Right. That's me.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible, and that's really funny that, like, I'm also not really a sports guy, so he's always telling me sports stuff, and I don't know, and the fact that
Right.
you shook Vince Lombardi's hand, and you're like, whatever.
Yeah.
Some guy named Vinny, I don't know. I think it's very funny.
Yeah.
My cousin Vinny.
But yeah, that's amazing stuff.
Well, I think, for me, the highlight was working with all the astronauts.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah,
were just,
that's awesome.
just neat guys, drink beer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you still into, like, were you, like, when you were a kid, were you the kid taking all the stuff apart, trying to figure out how it worked, taking apart the remote control?
Taking it apart, but never getting it back together.
Yeah, me too.
Had
yeah.
coffee cans full of parts.
Yeah. So it's always been a lifelong interest. Do you still tinker? Are you in the garage trying to build some sort of flamethrower or something?
No, just work with wood.
Where it's safe.
Wow. Is it safe?
Wow, wood doesn't combust right behind your head.
Well, no.
Maybe. I think that's what he's trying to find out a way to make that happen.
It combusts.
Yeah.
Wood will explode. Yeah.
Yeah, the peroxide, if it drips, if you got a small leak and a drip,
Yeah.
you got a fire.
Oh yeah.
We've started grass fires and all, at
Sure.
places. I got a scar on my ass. The throttle valve was leaking. This was
Jesus.
back in 93, 94, 95. And I'm all strapped in and ready to fly, and all of a sudden,
My ass is on fire.
I knew it. I told him, throw some water down my back. Throw some water down my back.
Yeah.
But it made a thing as big as a quarter and deep.
Oh,
Oh Jesus.
Nasty.
Yeah. That's worse than when your ass is on fire the next morning after a kegger.
yeah. I mean, we just downed a lot of those wings. There's probably going to be some combustible gas later.
Speaking about combustible gas, your Lee Majors
Oh, Lee Majors.
on top of the roof doing the Fall Guy.
Oh, yeah. We were filming a scene for The Fall Guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bail and Bond was the episode.
Okay.
And so I had this Toreador-like outfit on, That's what Lee Majors was dressed in.
Okay.
And he had his stunt double.
Yeah.
And so we did, I did, half a dozen flights up onto this roof and all. And it's getting late in the day. And his stunt double, they don't need him anymore. So this is at United Artists or, no. I don't know, one of the big movie lots.
Okay.
The wardrobe trailer is way on the other side of the lot. So the stuntman takes off and goes and changes into his own clothes and comes back.
Yeah.
And the producer director, he wants another shot. And so even though it's wearing an empty belt, the stuntman has to wear it.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Union laws or whatever.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have his suit. So I said, well, hell, here, take mine. We're the same size. I'll just stand here in my underwear.
Yeah.
So they made me put a elevator pad around me. And so and my suit was much bigger on him, but they have catering service for lunch.
Sure.
And that day they had barbecue with beans and all. Everybody loved the barbecue beans. Well, by 4:30 in the afternoon, we're all farting. And so somebody took a picture. There's Lee Majors and me and the stuntman. And Lee Majors is wrinkling his nose up like, there's something stinks. And I got this big shitting smile. And the stuntman's reaching in the back of his pants. He thinks he shit himself.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I won.
Wow.
Barbecued beans will get you every time.
That's phenomenal. What a life, man.
Yeah,
what
I
a
know.
life. And I'm sure that's not even scratching the surface.
Yeah, we just barely scratched the surface, I feel like. Yeah. So.
Did you ever expect to...
Well, tell us about the other talks, the bigger talk shows you've done, bigger than this one.
The bigger what?
Talk shows. You've been on a couple talk shows, right?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. They give you a camera on one with I Got a Secret and What's My Line, and these were before you were born.
Yeah. Yeah.
But classic, this Army thing kind of sideways you into having a little bit of a showbiz career.
Yeah.
It seems. Having little fart parties with Lee Majors, that's pretty Hollywood.
That's pretty Hollywood.
That's the movie Tarantino.
It was a contest.
And you won.
That's right.
You beat Lee Majors.
You
that's
won
hilarious.
a farting contest with Lee Majors.
Yeah, man.
That's awesome. You shook Vince Lombardi's hand. That's amazing to me. I'm a huge football fan, so that's amazing to me. Yeah, I mean, that's good stuff, though, and, it was really good. I hope that everybody out there that was listening learned something.
I hope you guys
today.
learned something about science.
Yeah.
I knew all that stuff. I just wanted him to explain it. Our audience is very dumb.
Yeah.
They don't know.
No.
They don't know any of that stuff. But I know what you're talking about with the combustion and the stuff. I know what you mean. None of that totally went over my head at all. And I just sat here going, yeah, totally. Yeah, combustion. Yeah. Like peroxide. I'm going to be at home like pouring peroxide out. Like, why am I not flying?
He's going to put it over.
It's not working. Where's Lee Majors? That guy was lying to us.
It's funny, the number of people that have tried to build them.
Yeah.
I met a whole bunch of really interesting guys and some real jerks, too.
Sure.
But in 2006, they had a Rockabilly convention here in Niagara Falls.
Okay.
And I met this young Australian guy, David Clark. And he had built, he lived way out in the outback. I mean, he had no access to anything. And he's my hero of heroes. He managed to build a flying rocket belt. And I got to say this, he's as good flying it as I would be.
Yeah?
Honest to God. And he did it all on his own.
Wow.
And he's the nicest, I've never met a not nice Australian, but he's the nicest guy you ever want to meet.
Sure.
And so humble. He does, shows, mainly in Australia.
Yeah.
But
there's like a whole jetpack culture out there.
Yeah.
Enthusiasts, guys.
Oh, yeah, a lot of wannabes.
Wannabes, a lot of posers.
Sure there's
but
a lot of wannabes.
what got me, now he was a lifer in the Royal Australian Air Force,
Okay.
an electronics technician and all. And
So he's got some credentials to get involved in.
Oh, yeah,
this,
he wasn't just an average hobbyist.
Yeah.
He was, but he said as a kid, getting back to what you were saying, he saw one of us flying in Australia in the 60s.
Sure.
And he started reading up on it. Oh, and it's done with steam. So he's trying to make a steam kettle drive a thing that he could fly.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And it was
I saw that video of the one guy just going face first into the creek.
Yeah.
And I decided this was the life for me. Wow. So that's, I mean, I'm sure that was inspiring for guys who were kids, watching the Super Bowl, seeing a guy come in a jetpack.
Yeah.
That would get them interested in the aeronautics of it. And, I'm sure you inspired a lot of people.
And
Absolutely.
The thing is, what the hell year was the Olympics? 84.
Did you fly over that too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was my biggest audience.
Of course.
2.5 billion people.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's what we're hoping to achieve on the show
So-
someday.
Yeah. So you're gonna send this to all of them, right?
So Daryl Johnson, you didn't shake Vince Lombardi's hand.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Wow. So you flew like during the opening ceremonies or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you fly?
And that was a surprise. Nobody knew it was coming.
Oh, cool.
And it was what the Olympic opening ceremonies. You're to showcase your nation's, history and with the society and
Whatever.
everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
You have to represent
so-
your culture.
we got to back up a couple of years. We were flying for Walt Disney in 1965 in Disneyland.
Yeah.
And Walt Disney was just thrilled by it. He wanted them all over.
You hang
flying
out
over.
with Walt Disney?
I drank bourbon with him.
Fuck out of here.
He had a
Yeah.
lounge in downtown Disney. At the end of Main Street was a fire hall,
Yeah.
and upstairs was his personal lounge. And we used to go up there and talk Rockefort and
Yeah.
Right.
and
All right, for real, you don't have to tell the people listening.
I wasn't
If
21
he's
yet.
frozen, just give us a wink. You know he's frozen. Oh, all right, I'm not
don't
going to
know.
say that he
But
definitely didn't not wink.
Anyway, where the hell was I with this? We were in Disneyland.
Drinking bourbon. with
Drinking
Walt
bourbon
Disney.
with Walt Disney.
No, it was.
Well, you some
Tommy,
of the Olympics, the Olympics and Disney something.
the shows that they put on in the streets in
Yeah.
Disneyland. The guy that choreographed it all and designed them and whatnot is Tommy Walker.
Okay.
And so we worked with Tommy Walker doing these things with Disney. So for Super Bowl, for the halftime show, they hired Tommy Walker to do the halftime show. Tommy Walker knows I need something to catch everybody's attention.
Yeah.
Yeah. When they come into the stadium, they're going to be talking. They're going to be paying attention. I need to get now.
yeah.
Yeah.
I want your attention.
Yeah.
Shortest act in show business. It's over with.
Yeah.
But I got your attention.
Right.
Yeah.
And so come 84 with the Olympics, they got to showcase what America can do.
Yeah.
And we got to get everybody's attention.
Mhm.
And he said, see if we can get the Rocket Belt. And so
And
here
there
I
we
am.
have it. And here I am.
And it worked well.
Yeah.
It did.
Yeah.
It got everybody's attention.
That's all amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, you met some serious people in your life.
Drinking bourbon with Walt Disney.
Yeah. Yeah. Walt
I didn't
Disney.
even like bourbon then.
No. But you're hanging out with Walt Disney. You
When
like
you-
whatever he likes.
When you're in Rome, you do as the Romans do.
That's right. Exactly.
I got some stuff. I got some questions for that man.
For Walt Disney?
Yeah.
Well, I think you're a little late.
Pluto's a
Oh.
dog. Pluto's a dog.
Wait, I gotta tell you.
Goofy's also a dog. Pluto's butt naked. Goofy's wearing like a 3-piece suit. He's got a vest and a hat, like he's a grown. Like, what's the difference there? I would like to know the logic in this man. He was hammered on bourbon when he's making those dogs. He don't know.
Walt Disney sent us back with an envelope sealed to take to the higher ups.
Yeah.
He wanted to put $50,000 toward the research of a jet belt and maybe fund the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so we go back. And you want to know why Bell isn't in business anymore? We're like conquering heroes going upstairs with this thing.
Sure.
Give it to him. He reads it. I'm not going to use any names.
No.
Throws it on the desk. He says, gentlemen, we're an aerospace company. We're no Mickey Mouse outfit.
Oh, wow.
And that was the end of it.
Wow.
Huh?
That was probably the first time that phrase was used, and he actually was talking about Mickey Mouse.
Those people are all dead, but they have families.
Sure.
And I don't want their families to know what a real moron.
No,
Yeah.
someone listening to this
Seriously.
going, we could have had Disney money.
Yeah. Disney money.
Disney money. That is
Yeah,
money. Our
that's
money's going to
money.
have that mouse on it within the next 10 years. I swear to God.
We're no Mickey Mouse outfit.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
that's
That is something
so
else.
funny.
Yep.
That's crazy.
I've made that decision before. I don't know what it's going to be, but I know later in life there's going to be something I was offered now that I was like, no, I'm not doing that. That's dumb.
Yeah.
And then in 100 years, I'm going to be like, God damn it.
In 100 years.
Well, we're gonna live a long time, dude. They're coming up with some. Have you not been listening?
I
The
have.
Army's coming up with crazy shit. We're gonna be flying around, living to the 1,000. You saw Avatar.
You saw Avatar.
We're gonna be blue, dude.
All right. Well, I don't know. That was one hell of a show. I can tell you
That's
that.
crazy.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a life.
It's a hell of a life.
And I'm sure I'm sure whatever you're doing tomorrow is gonna be 10 times more interesting than what me and him are doing.
Yeah, right?
I beg your pardon.
So you're doing woodworking now?
I'm making Christmas ornaments.
That's nice. That seems safer. Do
does
you have
seem
a
safer.
Christmas ornament of a guy in a jetpack? Did you ever approach Santa Claus with the whole jetpack thing? I feel like that really could have helped him out. You're saving a lot on reindeer food.
He's too fat.
Yeah, he's too fat.
He's too fat.
And
You're like, look,
We need a bigger jetpack.
Nick, you're gonna have to shed a couple pounds.
The bag full of toys.
You could have sent one of the elves up. They weigh nothing.
Oh.
You could have had a bunch of elves with jetpacks, all hitting the different regions. I'm gonna make a call.
See,
We're
now
gonna figure this
let's
out.
go back to that a minute.
Okay.
60% throttle.
Mm-hmm.
Minimum thrust. 240, 250 pounds of thrust.
Yeah.
At the Olympic flight, I had to be up in the peristyle, back behind the columns out of sight, all pressurized and ready to fly an hour and a half before showtime. Couldn't have anything up there, and he wanted it. You go on cue when I tell you.
Yeah, the
Right.
whole
Well,
thing is
it's
set up
not
around-
good to sit around. We used to call it arming the bomb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they insisted on it, and then they had this welcome thing. The young lady with safety pins pinning it on me, so the straps are under it and all. And the sun is beating down on it, and
oh boy.
it's starting to build up pressure, and the pressure gauge is going up and up and up and up and up. Now Nelson Tyler, he's the guy that built it. He's looking at that, and I'm looking at it, and I put a wet rag on the regulator. That'll help. So the needle's pegged over it. 600 pounds is the highest it would show on the gauge.
Yeah.
It's pegged. I said, Nelson, the gauge is broke. Don't worry about it. And we were both, getting to it. You either got to call it, we aren't going to do it. And I said, as soon as I open the throttle, that'll drop. But the problem was, it had built up so much pressure. I had never had a takeoff like that. It blew my socks off.
Yeah.
It was just go.
I mean, it
Right.
was just, and thank God, because I was a chubby little fellow then. But the thing was, when I come into land, now you don't want to screw up
No.
with
No,
2.5
course
billion,
not.
and Ronald Reagan's right up there in the window.
Wow.
And it was the worst landing I ever made in my professional life. It was, but you don't know where off is. And the minimum thrust was almost more than what I weighed. And I'm losing weight every second. And
Yeah.
trying to get the thing on the ground without shutting it off.
Yeah.
It was, it wasn't fun. The whole thing would have been fun other than that.
Yeah.
But it was, because it got overpressurized.
Sure.
Yeah, but that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's quite the story. You almost plummeted from the sky in front of Reagan. And Nancy.
Oh, then
Nancy
they
was
had
probably
the-
there too.
They had these
Probably.
big gold Mylar balloons, hundreds of them, the girls on the field.
Yeah.
And after I landed, they let go of the balloons. They all drifted off. Well, down in Van Nuys or somewhere, they ended up in the power lines and blacked out part of the city.
Dude,
Oh,
I'm
no kidding.
always wondering where stuff like that goes.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
whenever
there you have
people
it.
have a party where they light the candles of like the Japanese
Yeah.
lantern that floats away, where does that end up? It just goes.
You
It's
saw
just
the news in Oregon where the
No.
mountain was on fire?
Oh, because a bunch of people did
Yeah,
one of those.
yeah.
Well, that's where it ends up. Burn it down, Oregon.
Yeah, there you go.
That's well. That's I mean, that's pretty outrageous.
Yeah.
That's and you never expected anything like that to happen when you signed up for the service or at Bell Aerospace or whatever.
Yeah, you didn't expect to
You're doing
fly in the
flying
Olympics
shows
and
for
James
Reagan and
Bond and
going shot for shot with
Yeah.
Walt Disney.
right.
Oh,
Yeah.
The road
and
takes
it's funny. Cause
we always say the road takes you crazy places. If you get a jetpack, apparently you go to even crazier places.
Right. There is no road.
I was 20 when I first went to Disney. So I wasn't that far out of the Musketeer generation.
Right.
Right.
And I remember coming home from school and watching the Mickey Mouse Club and all.
Sure.
And only a couple of years later, here I am sitting talking with this guy.
Yeah. That's
Wow.
You
that's
know?
amazing.
It was.
That's cool. That's
Yeah.
really,
It
really
didn't sink in at that
is
time.
cool.
Sure.
You know, it isn't until you get older that.
Man, we're definitely the low spot.
Yeah.
I don't think we're making the documentary. They're probably going to talk about the whole other
Oh,
stuff.
that's the other thing I wanted to tell you. There's 2 films people might find very interesting.
Okay.
Both of them by Greg Reed from Australia, Paperbark Films. The first one is Rocket Compulsion,
Okay.
and it's a story of David Mayman, another wild Australian boy.
Yeah, you were talking about him before, right? I think
David
you-
Clark I was talking about. There's 2 Australian rocket
Yeah.
men.
Yeah, I think you said something about David Mayman earlier.
Oh, his jet engines.
All right, okay.
Okay. Well, Rocket Compulsion is his first getting into it, and then being obsessed, and going the next step. So the next one is Own the Sky,
Yeah.
and that's where he flies his jetpack around the Statue of Liberty.
Oh, okay.
And if you want to see something really cool, it's just Google or Yahoo or whatever you do. It's jetpack flight to Supertramp music,
Okay.
All right.
and it's unbelievable, And he's got all these little GoPros getting all this
Yeah.
stuff, and drones that are flying formation with him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the advancements that have come, it's not like it just stopped. Like, the advancements
Yep.
now are
And he's-
crazy.
He only flies it over water because he can't trust the engines.
Yeah.
Oh.
And there's things like that. There's in aviation, it's called the dead zone, and it's where a parachute is useless.
Yeah.
And so he's always flying in the dead zone, so he stays over water. But it's at a water ski park in California
Okay.
that's closed for the season,
All right.
and he's flying over water. It's a chase boat, and Own the Sky.
Own
And
the
in
Sky.
fact, it's a 90-minute documentary. It won some awards at one of the film festivals.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I think all this stuff.
everybody
Look it
go
all
check
up. I
that
bet
out.
you can look up the Olympic opening ceremonies and find them.
Yeah,
and,
everybody-
and the
Yeah,
Super
out there,
Bowl.
check
the-
all this stuff
and
out.
the nicest thing there, Peter Jennings or whoever it was, the MC,
Yeah.
said from Youngstown, New York.
All
And I-
right.
yeah.
We're gonna find
That's
that
right.
clip and play it on the next one.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible. We'll have to have
Youngstown,
you
New
back
York.
to keep.
Yeah, we might.
I'm
Yeah,
sure
we're
you got
gonna have to
more
have you back
stories.
again, Bill, because I think that we've only tapped the knowledge here. I think that maybe we'll do another show in a month or two if you're willing to come back.
If you
and
still
do it
got
again.
some
What do we-
contacts at Disney, I got some ideas about Lion King and where they should go with it. So, I think Mufasa should have a better part.
But
They should do a prequel.
Yeah, we should.
But
do
yeah,
a-
thank
do
you
a-
so much, man. That's so fascinating.
Yeah, it really is. Thanks a lot for doing this.
And you never know,
appreciate
kids.
it.
You never know where
Yeah.
you're gonna end up.
No.
People are probably like, "Is that guy from science class flying over the Super Bowl?"
Yeah. It is.
Right.
So
So you took all those opportunities. You went with it. Any offer, any wacky.
Pete working for a living.
Yeah, for sure.
right.
Guy says, "Hey, try to fly over that roof," and you go, "All right."
But you have to tell him. You didn't tell him how you got involved with the Rockabout when Wendell came and knocked on the door and said,
How it all started.
"Didn't Uncle Mickey get the?"
But that's a sore subject.
Oh,
With
Well, we can do that on the
he,
next
he,
one.
he, Wendell, when he broke his leg,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have an older brother.
Yeah.
He came to our house on crutches and asked my father if he could hire my brother.
Oh.
My father wanted to get the hell out of here. You almost killed yourself. You want to kill my son?
Oh. All right.
And then
That's
a couple
so
of
funny to
years,
show up on
later,
crutches.
Vietnam is starting to heat up,
Yep.
and I quit. I was going to school, and I quit. I was going to join the army, and I ran into Wendell in the store here, and I've been pestering him since I was a kid.
Right.
And I said, I'm going to join the army. No. I can't. Peter Kadzierski, the young kid, the second guy to fly it,
Yep.
he had quit and joined the Navy. And so there was an opening, and they had to have it. So that's how I got in there.
Wow.
My father would rather I was doing that than go in the Army.
Yeah.
Yeah, something nice and safe. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks again, Bell. Appreciate it.
And quote Forrest Gump, I got to pay.
All right.
Oh, you got to pee? Yeah, I was going to
pee.
quote when he said something bit me when he got burned on the ass after Forrest Gump got shot in the ass. He's a bit of a Forrest Gump himself.
Yeah.
All right, well, I hope you all enjoyed that. Captain's Jug of Thoughts, thanks for listening. Tell your friends. Is the next one going to be the spooky one?
Yeah, the next one is the fourth floor.
The more I was explaining that to a friend of mine today, and
Yeah.
as I was explaining it to him, I was like, I don't know if I'm too crazy about this anymore.
Yeah, we might be walking into another realm next week. We're not
Yeah.
really sure.
We might need
We're
to
gonna
buy
see
it.
what happens. But
Yeah.
the jug is gonna be.
They gotta like you. You've been there forever.
Well, I'm pretty sure they like me. I'm worried about all you guys.
I've been playing. All right, maybe they're just like, hey man,
I'm just gonna be like, hey, it's me. And they're gonna be like,
the ghosts are not a fan of Down by the River, and you guys play that at every show.
yeah.
I'm like, well, we're down by the river. Sorry, it works. All right, well, yeah, man. Thanks,
Yeah. So
Captain.
stay tuned.
Yep. There's plenty of good stuff coming up.
There sure is.
Okay, bye.
This is the Captain's Jug of Thoughts podcast.